Today, we are going to sit with why do we overreact in the moment and then sit with regret later, wondering what just happened inside us. Hello, and welcome back to From the Therapy Room Psychology of Mind and Body. I'm Jyoti, your host. I'm a clinical counseling psychotherapist, and I'm really glad that you're here. You're welcome to follow this space and stay connected. This is a space where we gently explore the inner landscapes of human mind, where psychology meets lived experience, and where the stories we carry inside finally find language. In this podcast, we explore the psychology behind everyday emotional experiences, the things we often struggle to understand within ourselves but feel very deeply in our day to day life. Have you ever reacted in a moment and even while reacting, a part of you knew this isn't really what I want to say, but I can't seem to stop? And sometimes it doesn't even feel like a choice, does it? It almost like something takes over for a few moments and you're watching yourself react even as a part of you is saying, this is going to too far, stop it, and yet it doesn't stop. If you have ever felt that split inside you, you're not alone in it. There's a moment, maybe you know it well, something small happens, probably a message is ignored, or something like a tone feels off, or someone says something very casual, but it lands heavy. And suddenly, your reaction feels bigger than the moment. You say something sharp, you withdraw, and you feel hurt, angry, and overwhelmed. And then later, you sit with it, and a quiet voice inside you whisper, why did I react like that? That wasn't me, or was it? Why do I keep doing this? If this feels familiar, this episode is certainly for you. Let's begin with something very important. You're not too emotional. You're not over dramatic. You are not difficult. What are you is triggered. And a trigger is not a weakness, it's a memory. Not always conscious memory, but emotional memory. Your mind may say this is just a small thing, but your nervous system says, I have been here before and it didn't end well. So your reaction isn't just about now, it's about then, leaking into now. And sometimes what you call overreacting is actually the first honest reaction you were never allowed to have earlier. And there is something deeply human in that. If your emotions feel big, it may be because they have been held for a long time without a space. So instead of asking, why am I like this? Maybe just sit with, where in my life did I learn that my feelings were too much? Or what if this reaction is not exaggeration but accumulation? And maybe the hardest part is this: you don't just react outwardly, you turn inward later and become harsh with yourself. And if you're both, the one who felt too much and the one who judges those feelings, the inner divide can be really exhausting. I can totally understand it and I can imagine it. It's so relatable. And in those moments, there are usually two parts of you: the present self, the logical one, the aware one, and the grounded one, and the younger self, which is emotional, protective, and reactive as well. So, what happened when you overreact? It is often the younger part is stepping forward in those moments. Not because it wants to ruin things, no, but because it wants to protect you in those moments. It has learned somewhere in your life, if I don't react as strongly, no one is going to listen to me. I won't feel heard. Or if I don't defend myself, I'll be hurt. Or if I don't pull away first, I'll be abandoned. So it reacts quickly. And before your thinking mind even catches up, and then later your present self come back online and says, oh, this was really too much. Don't think that this is some sort of inconsistency. No, this is not inconsistency. This is the inner fragmentation trying to survive. There is a quiet grief in realizing this, that sometimes you're not reacting to the person in front of you, you're reacting to a moment that never got completed inside you. And that younger part, it's not irrational, it's just is still waiting. So, in that moment, instead of pushing it away, you might gently ask yourself, what is this part of me afraid will happen again? Or what does this part of me need that it never received? Not to fix it immediately, but to finally acknowledge it. And if we see from the psychodynamic lens, your reaction is rarely about the present situation alone. It's about what the situation represents. For example, someone taking time to reply, and you think maybe, you feel like it's a rejection or a slight criticism, and you're taking it like, may feel like it is shame or a change in tone. Sometimes it feels like emotional withdrawal. And and if you slow down that moment, it's not just they didn't reply. It quietly becomes, maybe I don't matter. Maybe I'm being ignored. Maybe I'm not important enough. And that maybe carries a lot more weight than we realize. And these feelings often have roots in it, like childhood environments where emotions weren't fully seen, and a subtle invalidation, not necessarily trauma in the traumatic sense, or repeated moments of feeling not enough, or too much, or not safe. So your psyche develops a kind of emotional shortcuts, feels even slightly familiar, react strongly. Because in the past, reacting strongly may have been the only way to cope. Sometimes the intensity of your reaction confuses even you. But intensity doesn't come from nowhere, it comes from meaning, from the silent interpretations your mind has been carrying for years. So when something small feels big, you might pause and wonder, what meaning did I just attach to this moment? Did it become rejection or disrespect or abandonment or invisibility? Because often it's not the event that hurt the most, it's what it represents to you. If you look closely, most overreactions are not really about anger, they're about something much quieter and more vulnerable. The fear of being dismissed, the fear of not mattering, and the fear of being left out or left behind. Anger just arrives first because it feels stronger, but underneath it, underneath anger, there is often a part of you that feels small, uncertain, or unseen. And that part is not trying to fight, it's trying to be held. You might have noticed you don't react like this with everyone. I'm sure, I know, yeah. There are certain people, there are certain dynamics, and there are certain relationships when your reaction feels stronger, quicker, and harder to control. It doesn't seem, that's not random. Those spaces often carry more emotional investment, more vulnerability, and or some sort of unconscious familiarity with past relational pattern. That's what these spaces carry within themselves. So it's not just about who they are, it's about who you become in that dynamic. One of the most misunderstood thing is this, that you don't first think and then feel. You often feel and then think. Your body registers threat in milliseconds. Before you can say, let me calmly assess the situation, this situation, your heart rate changes, your chest tightens, your thoughts become faster and sharper. And in that state, you're not fully in choice. You are in activation, kind of activation mode. This is why later, when you calm down, you look back and feel regret. Because the version of you who reacted was not fully regulated in those moments. And in those moments, your body is not trying to sabotage you, it's simply trying to protect you in a very quick manner. And maybe no one ever taught your body that not everything intense is dangerous. So instead of forcing calm, you might simply notice, where do I feel this in my body right now? I mean, when I talk to my clients during the session, this question I really often ask, that where do you feel this in your body right now? And that explains a lot, really. Or something, can I stay with this sensation without immediately acting on it? Of course, not to control it, but just to be with it. Because sometimes regulation begins with presence, not correction. And just to be gentle here, even noticing your reaction is already a shift. You don't have to immediately calm down, you don't have to get it right. And sometimes awareness comes after the reaction, and that still counts. You might have noticed this pattern. In the moment, everything feels justified. Your reaction feels right, necessary even. But later, your perspective shifts. And you wonder, why couldn't I see this earlier? It's not because you lack awareness, it's because awareness requires safety. And in the moment of activation, your system is not prioritizing clarity, it's prioritizing protection. Clarity comes later when your system feels safe again. And I would like to, let's just see that why regrets come so strongly. I mean, regret is not punishment, it's awareness returning. It's your deeper self saying, this is not how I want to show up. But here's the gentle truth, if you only stay in regret, you miss the deeper invitation. Because regret is not the end of the story here, it is the doorway to understanding. That feeling of regret, it often carries shame. But beneath that shame, there's actually care. You regret because you care about how you show up, you care about your relationships, and you care about not hurting others. So instead of turning regret into self attack, you might soften it. Uh, you might soften it into something like, what does this regret tell me about the kind of person I want to be? Can I hold myself accountable without abandoning myself? Because growth doesn't come from harshness, it comes from honest, compassionate awareness. And there is a quiet moment that people don't talk about enough. Because right after the reaction, when everything goes silent, no more words, no more intensity, just you and what just happened. And in the silence, there can be a heaviness in the chest, a replay of the moment, a wish to undo it, and sometimes a very old familiar feeling, oh, I've done it again. If you know that silence, you also know how lonely it can feel. Sometimes the hardest part isn't the reaction itself, it's what it does to your relationship with yourself. And you begin to wonder, can I trust how I feel? Will I react like this again? Should I even express anything at all? And slowly, you don't just hold back into your reaction, you start holding back yourself. If you haven't felt that hesitation inside you, that quiet self doubt, it makes sense because when your reaction feel unpredictable, your sense of safety within yourself can feel shaken. Especially in today's world, we are carrying layers from fast paced digital communication, constant comparison, emotional isolation despite social connection. And yes, there is generational shift where emotions are now more visible but not always well understood. Many of us were not taught how to regulate emotions and how to communicate vulnerability, safety, and how to sit with discomfort without reacting. So, we are learning in real time, and sometimes that learning looks like reacting, regretting, reflecting, and growing again and again. Many of us feeling things more deeply than generations before us, but we are not equally taught how to hold these feelings. So there is this gap between emotional awareness and emotional regulation. And you're not alone in this gap, believe me. So if you find yourself reacting, learning, unlearning, repeating, maybe reflect something like, what emotional skill was I never taught that I am now expected to have? What if I'm not failing but learning something late? There is humility in this phase of life and also quite courage. If we see the same thing from some other perspective, probably some spiritual lens kind of thing, your triggers are not accident. They are invitation. Because we are human, we are whole. So it's not like that we need to understand things from just one perspective. So I would like to bring some other perspective too here. And like I'm saying, your triggers are not accidents, they are invitations. Each overreaction is pointing toward a place within you that still needs to be seen, a one that is asking for gentleness, a part of you that never fully felt safe. In that sense, your reaction is not the problem, your unmet emotional need is. So many of us are feeling things more deeply than generations before us, but we were not equally taught how to hold these feelings. So there is this gap. That pattern flips. Instead of overreacting, you begin to over control. You silence yourself, you overthink every response, you overthink every response. You become calm but not at ease. On the outside, it looks like growth, but inside, there is tension because you're not expressing less pain, you're just holding it more tightly. And both patterns, reaction and over control, come from the same place, a system that is trying to find safety. And it's also true, gently and honestly. Our reactions don't just stay within us, they land on the people around us, sometimes confusing them, sometimes hurting them, and sometimes creating distance we didn't intend. I mean, we don't want to have that kind of distance, we are not intended, but somehow it happens at times. And holding this truth is not about blaming yourself, it's about recognizing that. Your healing is not just personal, it's also relational. And every moment of awareness quietly changes the way you show up with others. For many people, repair feels harder than the reaction itself because it brings vulnerability and the fear of being misunderstood again. So, if this part feels uncomfortable for you, that doesn't mean you are incapable of healthy connection. It just means you are learning a language you were never taught. Before we talk about what you can do, maybe it's important to say this. You don't need to be a completely different person. You don't need to erase your emotional intensity. You are not trying to become less of yourself. You are learning how to become more safely yourself. Let's bring into something practical and compassionate, not perfection, not separation, just awareness. Like you can name what is happening inside you, something like instead of why I am like this, you can try something in me feels hurt right now, and that shift alone create a space. Another thing which you can do is slow down the reaction even slightly. You don't have to become completely calm, but even a small pause, a breath, a delayed response can interrupt the automatic pattern. Ask yourself gently, I mean, another way how you can manage it. What does this remind me of? Not in an intellectual way, but in a felt sense. Because often the intensity belongs to something older. And there is you can do one more thing after the moment: repair instead of shame. Instead of for I messed up again, try that wasn't how I wanted to respond, let me understand it. And if needed, repair externally. A simple acknowledgement, a softer follow-up conversation really repair, build trust with others and with yourself. You don't have to remember all of this. Even if one small thing stayed with you, that's enough. Change doesn't happen in big perfect shift. It happens in a small moment of noticing, oh, this is happening inside me again, and choosing just a little differently over time. And also, let's acknowledge something gently. This work of noticing, pausing, understanding yourself can feel tiring because it asks you to stay aware even in moments where you feel overwhelmed. If a part of you feel like I'm trying but this is hard, that part deserve acknowledgement too. You're not just reacting anymore, you are learning while reacting, and that takes energy. You're not trying to stop reacting, you are learning to understand it. This is somehow, this is not about becoming someone who never reacts. That's not human. This is about becoming someone who understand their emotions, understand their reactions, soften their inner response, and gradually creates more space between feeling and action. As over time, the reaction doesn't disappear, but it becomes less controlling. Healing doesn't mean you will never overcorrect again. It means that slowly the reaction becomes less sharp, the recovery becomes faster, and the understanding becomes deeper. And most importantly, you stop turning against yourself for being human. So if you're listening to this and thinking this is me again and again, just know just a gentle reminder kind of thing. You're not the only one sitting with this pattern. There are so many people trying to understand why they feel so much, why they react the way they do, why it is so hard to stay steady sometimes. And in that sense, you're not behind, you're just becoming aware. Maybe nothing changes instantly, but one small shift can begin to change everything. From why do I react like that to what was happening inside me when I reacted. One question creates shame, and the other one creates understanding. And where there is understanding, changes begin quietly. So, over time, something very subtle begins to change, not overnight, but gradually. The pause comes a little earlier, the intensity feels a little less overwhelming, and the recovery feels like a little kinder. And one day you notice you still feel deeply, but you don't feel as taken over by it as you used to. That's growth, not perfection, just one more space inside you. So the next time you find yourself thinking, why do I overreact? Maybe pause and ask instead, what part of me felt unsafe just now? What was I really needing in that moment? Because beneath every overreaction, there is not chaos, there is a story. And a story deserves to be heard, not judged. You're not broken, you're becoming aware, and awareness is where everything begins to shift. If this resonated with you, you might want to sit with a little longer or share it with someone who often says, I don't know why I react like this. And if you'd like to continue this conversation, you can listen to more episodes, reflect, and grow slowly and gently and honestly. Because this journey is not about fixing yourself, it's about understanding yourself. And maybe next time you react, instead of asking, what's wrong with me, you might gently ask, what inside me needed care that I didn't know how to give it? Maybe you were never overreacting. Maybe you were reacting with a nervous system and had learned to survive without enough safety. And now you are learning something new, not how feel less, but how to feel without losing yourself in it. Thank you for spending this time with me today. This has been From the Therapy Room Psychology of Mind and Body. If this resonated with you, you can share what you felt or noticed in the comments. I would love to hear your reflections. Or if you have any question, you can please put it there too. And if you find these conversations meaningful, you can follow or subscribe this podcast and feel free to share it with someone who might need to hear it. So these spaces of reflection can continue to be a part of your journey. Until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and the quiet spaces within you. See you. I'll be sitting next besides to you. Take care.